I absolutely love ABA Day.
It is one of my favorite things that we do in the American Bar Association.
Our focus is to get members from all 50 states, and we lobby on specific issues that are most important and pressing in Congress at the time.
It's powerful because lawyers have an impact. It's lawyers that are boots on the ground.
So I'm telling my legislators, my members of Congress, what is going on in their district, what is going on in their state, how does legal aid impact their district and their constituents specifically.
We have an opportunity to be boots on ground and to be the catalyst.
If you're willing to do the work and get involved, there's a lot of opportunity to do something meaningful.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to ABA Day 2026 Online. I'm Michelle Banky, President of the American Bar Association, and I'm so grateful that you've chosen to spend this time with us today to advocate for the legal profession. ABA Day has grown into the association's largest annual lobby event. It's the moment each year when lawyers, judges, bar leaders, law students, and legal professionals from across the country come together to speak as one profession, one voice to Congress. This year, that voice is focused on a simple idea. The justice system only works when people can safely reach it, and when they do, they can be effectively represented by the ones they trust. Over the next 90 minutes, we're going to highlight a set of issues that go directly to that principle: access to civil legal aid, the effective assistance of counsel in the digital era, funding for federal public defense, and judicial security. We'll also touch on several important digital-only issues that you can advance through our online tools, including encouraging and inviting members of Congress and their staff to local legal aid offices, offering to try to connect them with information on potential issues concerning the legal profession as they consider any upcoming artificial intelligence legislation, and helping to collect employer stories about the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. As you watch today, I want to encourage you to do three things. First, listen for the practical connections to your own work and your own community, whether this is legal aid office, a federal courtroom, a state trial court, or the law school clinic. Second, act. While you're with us, please act. Throughout the program, you'll see prompts on the screen and in the chat linking you to our ABA advocacy portal. From there, you can send letters, make calls, or even record short videos that will go directly to your members of Congress. Third, stay engaged. Stay engaged after today by following up with your members of Congress offices in the coming week, and by joining ABA Day at home during the April recess, and by continuing to respond to our alerts as these issues move through Congress. None of this happens in a vacuum. So I want to thank our ABA Planning Day Committee, our colleagues in the Government Affairs Office, and all the legal professionals, state and local bar members, and the sections, divisions, and entities who are partnering with us this year. I also want to thank our sponsors, Quorum, SKO Gov, and Baker Donaldson, for their support of this program and of the advocacy tools you're using today. Most of all, thank you. The time you spend here and the actions you take during and after this broadcast make a real difference for the people who may never know your name, but whose families, homes, and livelihoods and liberties depend on a functioning, fair, and accessible justice system. With that, let's get started. I'll now turn things over to our experienced ABA Planning Committee Chair, Jean Vance, who'll walk you through today's program and show you exactly how to make your voice heard during ABA Day 2026 online. Take it away, Jean.
Thank you, President Banky, and hello, everyone. I'm Jean Vance, Chair of the ABA Day Planning Committee, and it's also my pleasure to welcome you to ABA Day 2026 online. Many of you joined us in person for ABA Day in Washington last week. Over 2 days, lawyers and bar leaders from all over the country walked the halls of Congress, sat down with their senators and representatives, and made the case for protecting access to justice. Today's online program is another important part of that effort. Our goal this afternoon is simple: to take the conversations we started in Washington and amplify them nationwide. We'll do that in three main ways. First, by hearing directly from the members of Congress and leaders on the front line about our key issues: funding for the Legal Services Corporation, protecting confidential attorney-client communications, stabilizing the federal public defender program, and improving judicial security. Second, by showing you how those issues connect back to your own practice and community, whether you're in private practice or in a legal aid office or government agency, or if you're a law student getting ready to enter our profession. And third, by giving you concrete opportunities to act in real time, sending letters, making calls, recording short video messages, and signing up to help with site visits and in-district meetings. A few quick housekeeping points. If you haven't already, please take a moment to open our ABA Day advocacy portal at americanbar.quorum.us/ABA Day. You'll see it on the screen throughout the program. That portal is your one-stop shop today. It hosts our ABA Day digital campaigns for you to take action. It also includes our online-only campaigns like information on LSC site visits, collecting public service loan forgiveness employer stories, and our new AI Questions for Congress initiative. And it's where you'll find issue one-pagers and talking points that match what you'll hear from our speakers. As we move through the program, you'll see prompts like send a letter now or record your story. When you see those cues, that's your signal to click over to the portal and take that step while the issue is fresh in your mind. If everyone watching today does even 2 or 3 actions today, we will multiply the impact of last week's meetings many times over. Finally, I want to say a word of thanks up front to our sponsors, Quorum, SKO Gov, and Baker Donaldson, for supporting this broadcast and the advocacy tools you'll be using. You've already heard President Benke describe the big picture: access, representation, and judicial security. Let me provide additional context on that. Over the next hour and a half, we're going to turn that into specific, practical advocacy on each of our issues that you can do from wherever you are. With that, let's get this show on the road. Thank you again for being here. Let's get started.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. I'm Ron Flagg, President of the Legal Services Corporation, and I want to start by thanking each and every one of you for participating in ABA Days. Your outreach on Capitol Hill is vitally important to the future of access to justice in this country. The long-standing partnership between LSC and the ABA is something we are deeply proud of and tremendously grateful for. Together, we are working to ensure that every American, regardless of income, has access to the legal help they need to protect their homes, their families, their safety, and their livelihoods. Today, I'd like to share a brief update on where things stand for LSC and highlight how your efforts can make a real difference in the months ahead. This year's funding cycle is shaping up to look much different from last year's, with LSC in a much stronger position this cycle, thanks in no small part to all of you. As you all know, Congress has appropriated $540 million for LSC for fiscal year 2026. That's a 3.6% cut from previous funding levels. While no funding cut is easy, this outcome reflects a win for civil legal services, especially in a year when many federally funded programs face much deeper reductions or were eliminated altogether. While we appreciate and applaud this strong show of support from Congress, we must remain clear-eyed about the enormous unmet need in every corner of our country. This work has been chronically underfunded for decades, and a funding cut, however small, only widens the gap that exists between the American people who need legal services and the resources we have available to meet that need. That's why, for FY 2027, which begins October 1st, 2026, we are being clear about this need. In early April, LSC will release our FY 2027 budget request. We will ask for $2.1 billion. That figure is based on what it would actually take for our grantees to serve all eligible clients rather than turn away half of them without help. And this is where your advocacy comes in. When you meet with members of Congress or their staff during ABA days, consider the following 2 points. First, LSC needs more investment. The work our grantees do is basic constituent services, the bread and butter of a congressional member's portfolio, including housing, family, and veterans issues, just to name a few. And right now, we're only able to serve half of those who ask for help. Second, LSC is an investment that pays off. When we solve people's legal problems early, we reduce strain on government services like emergency shelters and first responders, and allow people to more fully participate in their communities. On average, legal services return $7 for every $1 invested. That's an exceptionally high economic return. Please keep that data point in mind. To help drive these points home, we have a new tool this year you can share with members and their staff. Encourage them to visit www.lsc.gov/Hill. This page will give them the information they need to understand LSC's impact, and importantly, to help them educate their colleagues about this critical resource. Now, I'm going to get into the weeds for a moment about the annual Dear Colleague letters. As you likely know, these letters are an annual campaign that happens internally within the House and the Senate as an opportunity for members to voice their support for areas of funding and encourage their colleagues to do the same. Typically, Dear Colleague letters are an important topic for ABA members to cover with congressional offices. Unfortunately, this year, the House of Representatives set an early and quick deadline, which was earlier this month. Even with some hiccups in the process, LSC received more than 130 bipartisan signatures from House members in support of legal services funding. The Senate letters, however, are still circulating. So as you meet with Senate offices, please mention those letters and encourage them to sign. As you go through this week, LSC is here to support you. Our team has topic-specific fact sheets and data on LSC's impact in each state. These resources can be used at your meetings and also serve as a powerful follow-up tool as part of thank you messaging to congressional staff after your meetings. We're sharing these resources with the ABA, and of course, our team is always available to answer any questions you may have. Before I close, I ask that you please take a moment, take a look at LSC on social media. Each one of us has different networks of people, friends, family, colleagues with whom we are connected. With a simple click of a button or tap of the finger, as it happens these days, you can easily advance our goal of making more people aware of the critical importance of our collective work. LSC appears on social media, including Twitter, now X, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Please take a look at these resources and share them as much as you can. Your voices matter, your advocacy is powerful, and your partnership is essential to ensuring that LSC can continue to support the most vulnerable members of our society. Thank you for being part of ABA Days and for being such strong champions of access to justice.
Well, thank you, Ron. Really appreciate your support for ABA Day and, of course, all of the work that you do at the Legal Services Corporation. My name is David Epstein. I'm one of the legislative counsels for the American Bar Association's Governmental Affairs Office, and legal aid falls in my portfolio. So for this year, we will be thanking Congress for their funding for the Legal Services Corporation for FY 2026, which is at $540 million. So you may recall the administration recommended drastic cuts to Legal Services Corporation funding, but thankfully Congress funded them healthily at $540 million when they were funded in the past at $560. So they did take a small cut, but in this environment, we are thanking Congress for their funding. And then for FY27, we're going to encourage members of Congress to fund Legal Services Corporation at a robust amount. So we would like to see some increased funding there. And if you could send a letter to your member of Congress encouraging them to fund the Legal Services Corporation, and also encouraging them to visit a Legal Services Corporation office in your community so they could get a firsthand look at the work that the legal aid attorneys do in your offices, in your local communities. And this year we're paying particular attention to the work that they do on disaster legal services, because that happens nationwide. It's completely nonpartisan, and we find that that really resonates with the legal offices and the congressional offices as well. So again, we want to thank Congress for their funding for FY 2026 at $540 million and encourage them to increase that for FY 2027. And thank you for your participation.
Hi, I'm Claire Tebbett, the Grassroots Specialist here at the ABA. If you can't make it to Washington for ABA Day, or even if you are coming but want to do more, this short video is for you. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to use ABA Day's digital tools to have a real impact in Congress while also spreading the word to your network step by step. No theory, just what to click, when to act, and how to involve other people to expand our voice. You don't have to be a tech expert. If you can open an email, you can do this. Number 1, before we dive in, I think it will be helpful to see how these efforts will fit in the larger picture. This year, think of ABA Day as a 3-part digital campaign. First, we have ABA Day in Washington, our in-person meetings on Capitol Hill that will take place from March 24th through 26th. Next, we have ABA Day Online on March 31st, our national broadcast. And finally, we have ABA Day at home during the April recess, when you can meet with lawmakers in their district and state offices. The digital work is the connect between all three. Before ABA Day, you can help set the stage. During the online broadcast, you can help show Congress the breadth of our reach and that the profession is engaged nationwide. During ABA Day at home, you reinforce those messages and follow up in your own communities. And almost all of that happens in one place, the ABA Advocacy Portal at ambar.org/ABA Day. If you remember one URL from this video, that's the one. Step 1. Before we do anything, we want to schedule our ABA Day intro email. The easiest and most important digital action you can take happens before ABA Day even starts. On the page you are seeing in this video, there's a link that lets you schedule an email to your members of Congress that will automatically send during ABA Day week. This email introduces you as a legal professional and constituent, lets them know what ABA members will be on the Hill, online, and at home talking about our core issues, and it tells you and our colleagues nationwide that they'll be following up with more information. All you need to do is click the link, confirm your address so the system finds your senators and representatives, and personalize the first couple of sentences if you like, with your role, your community, your practice area, and finally, hit send. That's it. Step 2. Join the March 31st online broadcast while you use the advocacy portal during to add your voice to the movement. With that, let's talk about ABA Day online broadcast. As you're watching the event, you'll hear a lot about our 4 main issues: funding for the Legal Services Corporation, the effective assistance of counsel in the Digital Era Act, federal public defense funding, and finally, judicial security. For each of those, there will be a corresponding action in the advocacy portal that we will walk you through day of. But here's what we will be using in real time. You'll be able to open a browser tab to americanbar.quorum.us/ABA Day before or during the broadcast. As you hear, now's a great time to send a letter on LSC, or let's ask Congress to support EACDEA, scroll to the matching campaign on that page. Click the campaign, skim the text to get comfortable, personalize a line or two if you like, and maybe with a client story or something you see in your practice, and then hit send. You will see confirmation right away, and that message goes directly to your members of Congress. The great part is that thanks to our sponsors at Quorum, these messages are guaranteed to make it through the congressional firewalls and will be delivered directly to the congressional staffer in charge of the issue. If you want a simple goal, aim to complete at least 2 digital actions during the broadcast. For example, 1 LSC and 1 Federal Defender's message, or 1 EAC DEA or Judicial Security message. That alone sends a strong signal from the profession. Step 3. Go beyond letters and video stories and advocate on digital-only issues. It's a great first step. Letters and emails are our backbone, but for those who want to make an even greater impact, ABA Day Digital is more than click once and done. There are a few other tools you can use that are just as easy and carry an entirely different impact. The first is helping to recruit PSLF employer stories. If you're a legal aid, public defender, government, or nonprofit employer, we're asking you to record a short video, 30 to 60 seconds, about how public service loan forgiveness affects your ability to recruit and retain lawyers. In the advocacy portal, look for the PSLF Employer Stories action. It will be the same format as your advocacy letters, but this tool will walk you through recording a quick video directly from your phone or laptop. You'll also see a digital-only campaign on judicial vacancies and new judgeships. This is where you can urge the Senate to fill existing vacancies promptly and allow Congress to authorize additional judgeships where caseloads demand it. It's a similar process. Click, review, personalize, and send. Next, we're trying something exciting this year, AI questions for Congress. Finally, we'll be inviting you to help to respond to congressional offices that are asking for help on AI and the law. In the portal, you'll see a simple form where you can request congressional offices to answer one quick question. What area of AI legislation do you see as the most pressing priority in this Congress? If we get at least 300 congressional offices to respond, this simple question becomes statistically significant and can hold a huge amount of weight. Then, once you've requested their response, you can also go on and notify the ABA GAO that you're willing to identify yourself as an expert in a particular area in case any congressional offices reach out for help in the future. This is not a commitment by any means, rather just letting us know that you are willing to be contacted on the area of expertise should the situation arise. Those inputs will guide follow-up materials and programs, including at upcoming ABA events and advocacy efforts. Step 4. Bring others along. Everything I've described so far is shareable, and the more people that bolster the message in your network, the more our movement gains momentum. A few easy ways to multiply your impact. Forward the ABA Day email to a colleague in your firm, bar association, or office and ask them to schedule their intro email too. Share the advocacy portal link, americanbar.quorum.us/ABA Day, in a practice group, listserv, or bar section email. And use our social media resource center to use suggested language and images that will make you look like a social media pro, all by being able to just copy and paste. So when you take an action, post something like, just took an action for #ABA Day 2026 through the @ABA Grassroots advocacy portal. If you're a legal professional, you can join in at ambar.org/ABA Day. You don't need to be persuasive or political online. Just letting people know that legal professions are acting is valuable. Step 5. Keep going during ABA Day at home. Finally, don't stop where the broadcast ends. During ABA Day at home, you can use the same portal to request meetings in district or state offices, download the meeting request letter template, and follow up with letters and thank yous after your visits. Think of the digital tools as your central command center for the entire ABA Day campaign. So, to recap, your digital game plan is, number 1, schedule your ABA Day intro email to Congress. 2, act during the March 31st broadcast. Aim for at least 2 issue campaigns. 3, go beyond letters with PSLF video stories, judicial vacancies, and AI feedback. 4, bring others along by sharing the links. And 5, use the portal again during ABA Day at home. If you do even a few of these steps, you're not just watching ABA Day, you're part of the nationwide advocacy movement of leaders. Thank you so much for being willing to use your voice, your experience, and yes, your Wi-Fi to support ABA Day 2026.
Hi, I'm Holly Cook, the Director of Governmental Affairs, and I appreciate you all joining us here for ABA Day Online. For the next few minutes, I want to discuss the importance of enhancing judicial security across our country. The ABA has long-standing policy to improve judicial security, both at the federal and the state level. Our judges need to be able to issue decisions based on the facts and cases pending before them, without fear of reprisal or attack or the safety of their court personnel or their families. Unfortunately, the threats and attacks against the judges, both at the federal and state level, are increasing across the country. When there are threats at the federal level, the U.S. Marshal Service steps in. They investigate, they provide enhanced security, they take steps and incorporate lessons learned from other incidents. At the state and local level, there is no central law enforcement force. There is no national database that will collect information like that. And yet the number of incidents are increasing. This year in Indiana, there was a judge and his wife who were shot in their home. Last year in Montana, there was another shooter incident inside a courthouse where the judge was threatened and the staff were threatened. In 2024 in Nevada, there was a defendant who was charged with attempted assault, who jumped over a defense table and over the bench to lunge at a judge, entering into a brawl with the court personnel and the staff. Back in 2023 in Maryland, there was a judge who was shot and killed in his driveway after he had issued a decision in a divorce case on a pending custody matter. His wife and his son were inside the house at the time of that incident. And the year before that, in 2022, in Wisconsin, there was another judge who was killed in his home, stemming from a case that had been pending or cases that had been pending in his courthouses. These incidents are increasing and they are not sustainable. We need to do something, which is why we are urging Congress to pass the Countering Threats and Attacks Against Our Judges Act. This act would create a national database to collect that information for state and local judges. It would create a national intelligence and resource center inside the State Justice Institute, which already exists. Congress already created that part. Collecting that information would allow people to analyze what's happening, to identify best practices, to disseminate lessons learned, and hopefully to improve the situation for our judges. The Senate passed this bill by unanimous consent back in November 2025. Now we need you to urge the House to do the same. Pass H.R. 4602, a bipartisan, bicameral bill to create this national database of important information to better inform and protect our state and local judges, their families, and their staff.
Hi, everyone. My name is Eric Story, and I'm the Director of Grassroots and Digital Advocacy here at the American Bar Association. And I also want to thank you for joining us for ABA Day Online 2026. You know, judicial security can sometimes sound like a distant issue until you stop and think about what it really means. Judges and court staff should be able to do their jobs without fear of threats, harassment, or violence. And when they can't, the entire justice system feels the impact. That's why ABA Day Online advocates for urging Congress to support H.R. 4602, the Countering Threats and Attacks on Our Judges Act. As our experts have said, this legislation would help establish a state judicial threat and intelligence resource center to improve training, incident reporting, and security support for judges and court personnel across the country. It's a practical, bipartisan step that would help state and local courts respond more effectively to a growing threat environment. So, here's your next chance to take action. Please head to the ABA Advocacy portal now and send your message to Congress in support of judicial security. When you do, you're helping make the case that protecting judges and court staff and the integrity of the courts is not optional. It's essential. And if this issue is especially personal to you, if you have seen threats against judges, courthouse staff, or court operations in your own state or community, please take a moment to personalize your message. Even 1 or 2 sentences about why this matters in real life can make a strong impression in congressional offices. So, we will continue to move on to some other issues, but for right now, please, go help support H.R. 4602. Protect judges, protect court staff, protect the rule of law. Thank you, and please take action now. And as you do that, we can start to transition to the next part of our broadcast. We can turn from protecting the people who serve in our courts to protecting one of the core principles that makes our justice system work at all: the right to effective assistance of counsel and the confidentiality that makes that representation meaningful. This next issue asks a very modern question with very old constitutional stakes. As communication moves more and more into digital spaces, How do we make sure attorney-client privilege and the right to counsel truly keep pace? To help us think through that, we're honored to welcome Melba Pearson, civil rights and criminal law attorney, former prosecutor, chair of the ABA Criminal Justice Section, and a self-proclaimed resident legal diva. As a justice concierge and legal analyst, she helps individuals, families, and organizations navigate the justice system with clarity, accountability, and purpose. And by the end of this, she may be one of your favorite legal professionals out there. Melba, thank you for being with us. Please, take it away.
Emails. Something we send every day, something we take for granted. It's part of the everyday fabric of our lives. We reach out to friends, and that's also how we're able to conduct business. But imagine someone who is incarcerated in the federal system and is not able to use that very basic form of communication to reach out to their attorney. Why, you may ask? Well, that's because attorney-client privilege does not cover emails in the Bureau of Prisons. Yeah, in 2026. Kind of crazy, right? Well, we have an opportunity to do something about that. We can reach out to our members of Congress to tell them to support the effective assistance of counsel in the Digital Era Act. Yes, no, it's a mouthful. It does have numbers. In the House, it is bill number 7491, and in the Senate, it is bill number 3850. Now, the issue here is this. The law needs to catch up to where we are as a country. Right now, letters are covered under that attorney-client privilege. In-person visits are covered by attorney-client privilege. Phone calls also covered, but emails are not. And so when we're dealing with fast-moving issues, or a person who's incarcerated just needs a quick answer to a question so they can make a decision as to what they're going to do next, they either have to write a letter and wait, and we all know that letters take a while. We call it snail mail for a reason. Letters take a while to get to the attorney, and then for the attorney to write a letter back and respond. I mean, that's kind of giving 1800s, right? Also, phone calls. Yes, always an option. But again, you think about the costs for people who are incarcerated to be able to make phone calls and things like that. So that becomes an issue. And again, in-person visits, as all of us are attorneys, we know that our calendars get really busy and things get very hectic very quickly. We may not have the time to make that trip to the prison and meet with a client in a fast enough manner. An email would just be boom. In 2 seconds, the person incarcerated can ask their question. The attorney can easily circle back and give a quick response. And that's the end of it, rather than it be this whole saga. Now, the Sixth Amendment guarantees all of us the right to effective assistance of counsel. How is it effective to not be able to have the use of the most basic technology, again, that we take for granted? And the impact that is going to have on so many lives. I mean, I always think about, one of my mottos is to educate, inform, and empower. And you're not empowered to make decisions about your life if you don't have the information, if you're not able to get that response from your attorney. This is something that's critical in order for attorneys to be effective, as well as for people incarcerated to understand their options fully and feel that they've been fully represented throughout this process. That effective assistance of counsel, this is one of the bedrocks of our democracy. So, and this bill, it's not left or right, Democrat or Republican. This is a bipartisan bill because both parties recognize that the effective assistance of counsel, as guaranteed by the Constitution, is something that has to be protected. So here's the easiest way to just make one little edit in the system that could have such a huge impact. So I encourage you to learn more about this piece of legislation and to reach out to your legislators to encourage them to say yes. Yes to effective assistance of counsel, and yes to being able to send a simple email. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Senator Cynthia Lummis here. Thanks to the American Bar Association for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today about legislation I'm proud to lead with my colleague, Senator Ron Wyden. We've been living in the digital age for quite some time now, yet our justice system and other parts of government just have not fully caught up. In federal prisons, communications between attorneys and incarcerated clients are protected if they happen in person, by phone, or through physical mail. But by email, which is the most common communications tool of the modern world, they can be monitored by the government under current policy. As a constitutional conservative, it pains me to see outdated government policy slowly infringe on the right to effective assistance of counsel guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment. That's why I joined Senator Wyden to introduce the Effective Assistance of Counsel in the Digital Era Act to ensure public safety while also making sure our justice system adapts to the realities of modern communications. So our bill requires the Bureau of Prisons to protect privileged attorney-client emails from monitoring while still allowing access under narrow circumstances, such as a court-approved warrant, so that we preserve both due process and legitimate security needs. Like current law, this legislation also respects long-standing limits on privilege, including the crime fraud exception. The legislation directs the Department of Justice to establish guidelines and implement a system within 2 years that allows incarcerated individuals to send and receive privileged legal emails that are excluded from routine monitoring. We are well into the technology age, and it's past time for the government to evolve and comply with the Constitution by ensuring that incarcerated individuals and their attorneys are guaranteed attorney-client privilege through email, not just through physical mail, phone calls, or in-person meetings. Thank you all for championing this important issue. Attorney-client privilege is a constitutional cornerstone of our justice system, and I applaud all of you for your work to uphold the rule of law in our nation. I want to thank the American Bar Association for taking the time to advance this issue forward, and I want to wish you a wonderful rest of your conference.
I'm pleased to be with all of you today to discuss a bill that I'm proud to sponsor and is priority business. That bill is the Effective Assistance of Counsel in the Digital Era Act. It goes to the heart of the attorney-client privilege. All of you know that's a fundamental underpinning of the United States criminal justice system. To safeguard the privilege, the federal government already cannot access attorney-client communications conducted through in-person meetings, phone calls, and snail mail in Bureau of Prison facilities. Yet those guardrails do not extend to email at federal prisons. My friend, Senator Lummis of Wyoming, has joined me in introducing bipartisan legislation to close this gap. It brings prison regulations into the 21st century. Recognizing that attorney-client privilege extends to email is just common sense. I'm pushing hard to get this bill through the Senate and signed into black letter law. I hope you'll join me in making this push. Together, I'm certain we can do it.
Hi, everyone. Ken Goldsmith in the ABA Governmental Affairs Office, and thank you again for supporting ABA Day 2026,
and for a bill that defends the attorney-client privilege, the Effective Assistance of Counsel and the Digital Era Act. Because as good as we might be in Washington, D.C., change doesn't come without the voice of voters, especially ones as influential and persuasive as you. So thank you for lending your voice to such important causes. As you've seen and heard from our champions, there's a continuing need for this bill, a bill that you've probably spoken about with your members of Congress in the past at past ABA days. Unfortunately, the problems and the BOP policies have not changed. Thankfully, neither has our resolve. There's a wonderful new online toolkit at ambar.org/EAC with the newest background information and talking points to make the case anew. But I want to make you aware of an exciting new development from just last week. Our House and Senate champions, both Republican and Democrat, are pursuing another strategy, submitting text to the appropriations committees that calls on the Bureau of Prisons to change its ways within 60 days and in a way that preserves the privilege. There's additional language providing a report out, so there will be a chance for oversight. This approach is less prescriptive than the EAC Act, but it's not instead of it. And it may have a better chance of getting through in a midterm election year than a standalone bill. So in addition to co-sponsoring the bills, please still have them do that. Please ask your members to support this approach as well, especially those who sit on the Commerce, Justice, Science Appropriations Subcommittee in each chamber. We'll have a link to the members of those committees on our toolkit. If you're joining us this year remotely, then the toolkit links to all kinds of information as well as the opportunity to either contact your members by phone or email. If you choose the email option, please change the message to reflect your own voice and so that members of Congress and their staff know that it's not AI. Authenticity matters. And if you choose the phone option, grab your talking points and don't forget, once you call, our system will go through your representative's office and each of your senators in turn while you hang on the line. Thank you again for your critical support for the attorney-client privilege, the Effective Assistance of Counsel, and the Digital Era Act, and the Sixth Amendment. Here's to a successful ABA Day 2026. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jason Tutman. I am the Chief Federal Public Defender for the districts of North Dakota and South Dakota. The federal defenders represent indigent defendants in 92 of the 94 districts across the United States and in Circuit Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court. We are the boots on the ground, the people that represent indigent defendants in the federal courts every single day to make good on the Sixth Amendment promises. John, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's John Murphy, and I'm the district representative for the 100 or so CJA attorneys. These are private practice attorneys that accept federal court appointments in the state of South Dakota, and there's folks like me throughout the country that represent the private practice attorneys in their states that accept federal court appointments pursuant to the CJA Act.
John, how are panel attorneys chosen and selected?
It's a careful process. The folks that represent indigent defendants in the federal system are screened for ethics and competency. They are required to go through training. It's typically put on by a federal defender's office. And a panel is created from which the district court judges then select attorneys to represent individual defendants.
Yeah, so these are really, really highly skilled lawyers from the private bar. And when they combine with the federal defender offices, they represent 90% or over 90% of indigent defendants in federal court. So they are panel lawyers, and the defender offices are the backbone of the Sixth Amendment. And, you know, if there's one thing we wanted to do today is we wanted to express gratitude to Congress. The last couple years, this program, both panel lawyers and defenders, has been in crisis. We have been chronically underfunded multiple cycles over. This culminated on the defender side for a 2-year-long hiring freeze, which in my office meant that I was less than 80% of what was necessary to operate the office. On the panel side, that meant that they were over $1 million underpaid. John could talk a little more about what that meant on the ground in terms of to these small business owners.
Yeah, one thing that sometimes gets overlooked is that CJA attorneys are not just attorneys, but they're small business people. They have staffs. They work closely with associated people, contract workers, such as paralegals, investigators, and experts. And so when the freeze was in existence, not only were the attorneys not getting paid, but often people that were working closely with them on cases, interpreters and private investigators and whatnot, weren't getting paid. And it also meant that the attorney, when they were representing somebody and soliciting expertise and assistance from others, couldn't guarantee those people that they would get paid in a timely manner. And that had a huge impact on CJA attorneys' abilities not only to run their own businesses and pay their own staff, but also to work with other professionals in the community that are vital to the adequate representation of people charged with federal crimes.
Yeah, imagine not getting paid for months at a time for work you'd already previously done. And so on the defender side, that meant low staffing. It meant when we lost people, we could not replace them. And this happened in a time of rising case environments, new administrations, new priorities, and both sides really felt the sting of this. And we are grateful that last January Congress fully funded the program, which meant that we can start putting the pieces back together. On the panel side, it means that they are guaranteed to be paid, and they know that when the work they do, they're going to receive payment for it, which gives tremendous stability to them as they operate their businesses and allows them to focus on representing their clients instead of figuring out where to pay their bills and what business to solicit. On the defender side, that means we can start to put our offices back together. That 80% or whatever my office was at, 80% or so, we've placed ads out. We've started putting people in those positions so they can go back and they can start doing work for our clients every single day. And also started funding long-term cybersecurity projects, things that had been put on hold as we move forward.
On the CJA side, we're so grateful for being fully funded because now when we're encouraging attorneys, experienced attorneys to come onto the panel, we can say with confidence, you're not going to go through this in another 6 months. People have heard about the payment delays that occurred, and that shakes their confidence. But now, because we're fully funded, when people contact me, which they regularly do, about coming on the panel, that there's a security and stability going forward, that they will get paid, and the people they hire on behalf of their clients will also get paid. And that stability allows them to plan, just as you would in any business. You want to plan going forward and know that the resources are going to come in to cover your expenses.
I think it's important to remember that fully funding this program isn't just about helping criminal defendants. It is about confidence in our system. It is about as administrations change and priorities change, this program has represented George Floyd protesters, and they have represented January 6th defendants. Whoever is on the other side of whatever priority the federal government has, we need to ensure that they are properly represented and zealously represented, so we all have the confidence that in our criminal justice system, and that what comes out of it is good product. Without funding federal criminal defense, that can't happen. And full funding was a crucial first step. And as we move forward, maintaining that baseline is crucial to our program, but crucial to Sixth Amendment and crucial to our form of government.
As lawyers and law students, you don't need reminding as to why we need proper funding for our federal public defense system. And to help you make the case to others, we've got a wonderful online toolkit at ambar.org/FedDefenders, all one word, with the latest in background information and talking points to make that case. And it's not really that you need the help, apparently, because since fiscal year 2024, we have seen a terrible funding situation facing the Defender Services Office turn a corner. And thanks to advocates like you, Congress finally got the message, approving 100% of the DSO's funding request for the current fiscal year. We'd like to make the success for this year the start of a new chapter for the DSO, one in which there's an assumption that they get the funding that they need. And you can begin by thanking your member for voting for the omnibus funding package in which this was included, and then reminding them that this is a constitutional commitment, one that requires greater continuity than just a good year. And then ask them to support fiscal year 2027 funding for the DSO, which is just a 1.5% increase, which is lower than the rate of inflation. Now, if you're participating with us remotely, you've got access to all the materials online, as well as the options for calling or emailing. If you choose the email option, please customize that message so it's your voice and so that members of Congress and their staff know that they're not dealing with an AI bot. Authenticity matters these days. And if you choose the phone option, remember to grab your talking points and stay on the line, as our system will take you through your representative and then both senators' office in succession while you stay on the line. With that, it's go time. Have fun. Let us know how it went. And thank you for supporting the Sixth Amendment and the men and women who help make it a reality. As you've heard me say before, politics is a personal contact sport. Change can come when we all show up. And if you care about public service loan forgiveness program eligibility, we're going to need you, your whole family, friends, and colleagues to all get in on the action. You might recall that last fall there were very concerning regulations adopted by the Department of Education. They seek to ensure that criminal organizations are not benefiting from PSLF. But let's be really clear here. Nobody is arguing for allowing criminal organizations to benefit from PSLF. So what's this about that has us concerned? It's about the department giving itself the authority to decide when people have engaged in illegal activity without any input from others, including from the accused. And spoiler, it doesn't require that you actually engage in illegal activity. And that has more than a few people across the political spectrum a little bit worried. And there are other legal issues presented, such as the Secretary of Education will change the eligibility for a statutory program through her own regulations. We can't do that. It's about deciding whether an organization or governmental agency is breaking the law, utilizing only the lowest standard of proof and without giving them the ability to be heard or to appeal. And it all comes down to a non-exhaustive list of issues that aren't even in the department's jurisdiction, let alone expertise to decide. And all of this together impacts organizations and their employees being intimidated from lawfully helping vulnerable people just in order to satisfy administration preferences. And don't take my word for it. That's the view of the ABA in 2 letters by 2 presidents last year, 3 federal lawsuits, and many of the 14,000 commenters who opposed the proposed regulations. But none of that has so far been enough to stop these regulations from going into effect July 1st. But under the law, there is a way to stop them, repealing them outright. And this is where you and everyone you can see or in shouting distance comes in. There is a special process in Congress called the Congressional Review Act. Members introduce a resolution, and it has a set amount of time after which they will vote. A simple majority vote wins, and it can't be filibustered. And it would be great to get that majority. But it can be vetoed. And so this can't be a squeaker vote. It takes a 2/3 majority in each chamber to override a veto. And that's our goal. And that means this cannot become a partisan attack on the president. This is a concern common for all of us who must live under the law. And the good news is that there's a champion in each chamber who will bring this to their colleagues. Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia and Representative Joe Courtney of Connecticut. But they're going to need our help. And we've got you. We've got a campaign online through which you can send a letter or make phone calls. We want these to come pouring in, however, at the right time, in time with that big vote. But you don't have to wait. In fact, please don't wait. Prepare and send your message now, and we'll hold on to it until the right time for the maximum impact. And also, thankfully, know that we're not alone. We'll be joined by a growing list of organizations who feel the same. Remember, opposing the administration is necessarily political, but it's not partisan. If you speak with lawmakers who support everything the president does, just remind them that what the administration puts in place today can be used against causes that they care about under another administration tomorrow. So thank you for lending your voice to such an important cause, and thank you for your support of ABA Day Digital 2026.
Thanks, Ken. And thank you for helping highlight the importance of PSLF. Now, as we continue through today's program, I want to turn to a topic that is moving incredibly fast and touching nearly every part of our profession: artificial intelligence. At this point, AI is no longer some distant issue sitting on the horizon. It's here, it's evolving quickly, and in many spaces, it is already becoming a necessary tool in the professional toolbox. But as legal professionals, and especially as bar associations, courts, and other mission-driven institutions, we also know that speed alone cannot be the standard. We have to be thoughtful about how these tools are used, where they're used, and what protections need to be in place, especially when confidentiality, accuracy, accountability, and public trust are on the line. And following cases like U.S. v. Hebner, those concerns about data security and attorney-client privilege are not theoretical. They are immediate, practical, and very real. That is one reason why it matters so much that organizations move carefully towards secure, proprietary platforms, rather than relying on the public-facing tools that may not be built for legal or advocacy work. And when those tools are advocacy-specific platforms like Quorum or some of the others in the market, there can be real advantages in terms of security, focus, and function. So to help us think through that, I am pleased to welcome Aditya Kamanduri, our AK as we call him around the office, who has been a valuable partner in helping organizations think strategically about digital advocacy tools and where technology can support this work responsibly. AK, thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having us, Eric. We're very excited.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we are really interested to hear some of the platforms that people are using for AI. And we are fully aware that it's a little bit of a wild, wild west type of situation with AI platforms, especially after US v. Hebner making anything that is entered into some of these LLM platforms discoverable on both sides. So can you tell us a little bit of what's happening in AI in the advocacy realm, and maybe how state bars and different bars around the country can really feel a little bit safer about some of the AI usage that they and some of their clients are using?
Yeah, that is a spectacular question, Eric. And I think a very pertinent one in today's day and age, because while AI is great and it can do a lot of things to make our lives better on the day-to-day, we have to think about the types of systems we're using, the type of information we're putting in, and ultimately what kind of results that yields us. So from the advocacy perspective, I think it's a very exciting time, right? I think eventually when this first came out, people were concerned, is AI going to take our jobs, right? Will we be useful in the world of AI? And what we found is, thankfully, it's not taking our jobs yet, but there's a lot of ways where we can use it to make our jobs a lot easier and get that kind of information that before took us hours and hours and hours of our time. So in the advocacy and in the policy world, we find this especially true, right? AI is never going to go meet with a lawmaker, or AI is never going to be the subject matter expert that an office calls on when they need to know how to regulate or how to concern or their concerns around regulations and policy shifts. That's where I think we come in, because the every year people hear the same thing. We have new bills These bills look like they're kind of copycat versions of legislation in different states. And so people in the past spent years and years looking up what's an effective way for me to read bills across different states, summarize them, analyze them, see some trends that we're seeing, and understand what the key thematic similarities and differences are. And I think that's where Quorum is really trying to take the next step, is making it easier for teams to quickly be aware of policy developments and regulatory developments as they happen in your state. And then also, as you're analyzing how your state's policy developments might mirror or be different than a neighboring state or a different state, making it much easier to do that. So there's a couple things that we can show you really quickly here, but that's how I would say we're namely changing the game in AI. So the high level TLDR of Quorum, what is Quorum? It's a technology that is used by organizations to monitor policy developments or regulatory developments in their state. So the tool is actively collecting information on what bills are being introduced, what are the changes around these bills, what are lawmakers saying about your key issues, and making it easier for teams to stay on top of that kind of information. So in the past, we've had multiple people come into a data set of legislation and say, hey, what are all the bills that we care about around judicial security, for example? We'd scroll through and say, oh, okay, this Massachusetts bill looks relatively important to us. Maybe this Rhode Island bill, HB 7640, looks important to us. In the past, we would have to click into the bill, find the text of the bill, read through everything, and understand what changed. This is an area where I think AI can automate in 2 minutes. So what we'll pull up now is Quorum's proprietary tool called Quincy, which is good because it's not an LLM. It's what we call a RAG model. It is retrieving information that is already within Quorum. So this AI tool, Quincy, is only trained to read off of what is in Quorum, which is primary source documentation, the actual legislative text, the actual committee information or regulatory information that we are pulling directly from the state's website. It's not reading from the internet and pulling a bunch of random articles, so the risk of hallucination or making up information is extremely low. This is a great example of how we can use this to help us understand legislative differences. So an example here is one where I can say, hey, can you compare what this House Bill 5059 in Massachusetts does and how it's similar to and different than this Rhode Island bill? What the AI tool can then do is give you a full comparison and analysis of the similarities and of the differences between the Massachusetts bill and the Rhode Island bill. So it's understanding scope and key provisions for the Massachusetts bill, which it points out right here, directly reading off the bill text. It also then does that for the Rhode Island bill, giving you a comparison and analysis of who and what is protected, changes in privacy regulations, changes in provisions or implementation timeline. And to that point earlier, Eric, we are linking directly to the bill text. So if we want to have that second layer of check to make sure, is AI making this up or is it absolutely going off the wheels, we can actually go into the actual Massachusetts bill, read the text directly here, and show you where it's pulling from. So we always suggest a second layer of verification because it's not perfect. However, it's getting us 90% of the way there and eliminating hours of time we've had to spend in previous years. Eric, is that something that you've heard be a problem amongst different folks?
Absolutely. Maybe not a problem, but a very time-consuming task, and something where interns have always played a key role for these things. So being able to train something once and not have to do it every single semester, that sounds like music to our ears.
To that point also, Eric, one of the other things that we often hear a lot too is keeping on top of an actual bill as it makes its way through the legislative process. As we know, it's sometimes a time-consuming and confusing process, and the process of a bill going through committee, being taken out, referred back to, can mean multiple times where language is inserted, deleted, or the fundamental context of the bill changes itself. So another area that the AI tool I think is really powerful in how we're using this in the advocacy world is say, hey, we have the introduced version and the engrossed version. Can you please give me a summary of the markup differences between the introduced and the engrossed versions? So now AI is able to read through multiple versions of that legislative text, understand the context behind what got changed, what got inserted, what got deleted, and give you better understanding and analysis of expanded scope, definitions, reporting requirements, effective dates, or anything of the like as well. So whether we're using this to compare legislative and thematic similarities and differences between states, or the history of a bill as it makes its way through the legislative and committee process, AI is really powerful, especially in a trusted environment of reading specifically off the primary source bill text and using that as a frame of reference. And so that's where I think AI makes the biggest difference in how we're using AI to change the game in the advocacy and in the policy analysis world. So that was my quick overview of Quorum. Eric, would love to hand it back to you for your thoughts.
Wow, that's really cool. Thanks, AK. And I especially appreciate how you frame both the opportunity and the responsibility here. Moving from some of these public-facing platforms to some advocacy-specific RAG platforms really offers a lot of safety and kind of handles a lot of concerns that we have in the business. AI is moving quickly, and Congress is going to keep wrestling with how to best respond. But one of the clearest messages we can send as legal professionals is that this conversation should not happen without people who understand confidentiality, due process, professional responsibility, client trust, and the real-world operation of the justice system. And that brings us to our advocacy ask for AI. For this portion of ABA Day, we are asking advocates to send a message to their members of Congress, and this time invite a response to one simple question. What area of AI legislation do you see as the most pressing priority in this Congress? In the letter you're able to send, advocates will be able to point offices to several possible areas of focus, including the protection of the attorney-client privilege, privacy, user concerns, IP infringement, national security, law enforcement, and others. The goal here is to open a real line of communication and remind congressional offices that legal professionals are ready to help, not only by raising concerns, but by offering practical expertise as lawmakers shape this next generation of policy. So if this issue matters to you, please go to the ABA advocacy portal and send your AI letter now. And when the congressional offices respond back to you, please remember to forward that message to the Governmental Affairs Office. This is one of the most quickly developing policy areas we're dealing with today, and your voice can help ensure that Congress hears from people who understand both the promise of these tools and the legal guardrails they require. It's also exciting to poll Congress and see what some of their offices are thinking about what is most important to them. So thank you, AK, and thank you to all of the advocates that are participating today.
Hi, everyone. It's me again, and ABA Day Online is coming to a close. On behalf of my incredibly talented governmental affairs team and me, we wanted to just take a minute to thank you for joining us for ABA Day Online, ABA Day in your home districts, and ABA Day on Capitol Hill. You are the reason that ABA Day is so successful. We may be the experts on the issues that we asked you to engage on today. We may be on Capitol Hill on a regular basis. But Congress wants to hear from you, their constituents, on the issues that matter to them most. So thank you again for lending your voices as part of the collective voice of our legal profession. If you've not already done so, please visit our website at ambar.org/grassroots. Join our Grassroots action team. We'd love to have you as a permanent part of our collective voice of the legal profession. Sign up to get a copy of our Washington Letter, a monthly newsletter to give you the highlights of what has happened on Capitol Hill and in the federal agencies for the last 30 to 45 days. Thanks again for your time, and have fun on Capitol Hill.
Wow, we made it. Hey, everyone. What an incredible online event. Thank you all for being part of ABA Day 2026. Over the last 90 minutes, you've heard from the members of Congress, legal aid leaders, federal defenders, and some of the experts leading the way. Together, we've focused on 4 core priorities. 1, strengthening civil legal aid through robust funding of the Legal Services Corporation, and inviting lawmakers to visit LSC-funded programs at home. 2, protecting confidential communications between incarcerated clients and their lawyers through the Effective Assistance of Counsel in the Digital Era Act. 3, stabilizing federal public defense so that the federal defenders and CJA panel attorneys have the resources they need to fulfill the constitutional right to counsel. And 4, enhancing judicial security so judges and court staff, especially in state and local courts, can do their jobs without fear of threats or violence. We've also touched on our online issues, including the gathering of employer stories about public service loan forgiveness and the ABA's offer to try to help Congress think about legal implications of artificial intelligence. If you've already taken action today by sending a letter, recording a video, or signing up to host a site visit, thank you. If you haven't yet, there's still time. The ABA Advocacy Portal will remain open long after this broadcast ends, and your advocacy does not have to stop when the live stream does. ABA Day is not a single moment. It's a 3-part effort. Today's online program, ABA Day in Washington, where many of us met with our senators and representatives on Capitol Hill last week, and ABA Day at home, where we'll have a chance to meet with lawmakers in their district and state offices and invite them to see the justice system institutions in our communities. I hope you'll carry today's momentum throughout these phases. And please, share what you've learned with colleagues. Encourage others in your bar, firm, school, office, or organization to use these ongoing ABA tools. And keep telling the stories that bring these issues to life for policymakers. On behalf of the American Bar Association, I want to thank our ABA Day Planning Committee, our Government Affairs team, and our sponsors, Quorum, at SKO Gov, and Baker Donaldson, for making this program possible. And most importantly, thank each of you for lending your time, your expertise, and voice during ABA Day 2026. You're the reason ABA Day matters. Together, we can help ensure that our courts are secure, our clients are represented, and our justice system remains worthy of public trust. I look forward to seeing many of you at upcoming events. And with that, I'll hand it off one more time to ABA Day Planning Committee Chair Gene Vance to take you home.
Thank you, Michelle. You said it. What an event. Thank you to all of our speakers. We can't thank you all enough for taking the time out of your busy schedules to help advance the rule of law and access to justice in our great country. And thank you to each of you joining us today for ABA Day 2026 online. In just one program, we've lifted up the importance of civil legal aid and the Legal Services Corporation and asked Congress not only to sustain LSC, but to visit LSC-funded programs back home. We highlighted the Effective Assistance of Counsel in the Digital Era Act, which would finally align emails with long-standing protections for attorney-client privilege. We shined a light on the ongoing funding challenges facing federal defenders and CJA panel attorneys, and the need to fully support the constitutional right to counsel. And we focused on judicial security, underscoring why state and local judges and court staff need better tools to track and respond to threats. On top of that, we dove into specific requests from congressional offices by gathering PSLF employer stories and offering the ABA's help as Congress grapples with the implications of artificial intelligence. If you've taken action during this broadcast, thank you. If you haven't had a chance yet, it's not too late. The ABA Day Advocacy Portal will remain open before, during, and after ABA Day. You can send letters and emails on LSC, federal defenders, judicial security, and more. Employers can record PSLF stories that will help us show Congress how loan forgiveness supports hiring and retention. And you can help answer the call on AI questions or issues that you think will benefit from your legal input. As chair of the ABA Day Planning Committee, I also want to emphasize that ABA Day is not a single event. It's a campaign. We began last week with ABA Day in Washington, where many of you met face-to-face with your senators and representatives. Today, through ABA Day Online, we've connected advocates from every corner of the country to those same issues and tools and moved as one voice. Next, during ABA Day at Home, you'll carry that work into district and state offices and into site visits that bring members of Congress directly into legal aid programs, defender offices, and other justice system institutions in their community. Our planning committee designed these 3 phases to build on each other. What you've done today will strengthen your conversations back home, and what you do back home will echo the messages we continue to deliver in Washington. So before we close, I want to extend my personal thanks to President Michelle Benke for her leadership and support. We could not have done it without you. To the members of the ABA Day Planning Committee, who tirelessly gave their time and efforts to carry the torch of this important advocacy effort. To our Governmental Affairs Office team for their support throughout the process. To our state and local bar colleagues and partners from ABA entities for their advocacy. And to our sponsors, Quorum, SKO Gov, and Baker Donaldson, for making this program and our digital advocacy efforts possible. And most importantly, thank you. ABA Day only works because you show up, you prepare, and you are willing to speak on behalf of your state and local communities, your clients, and the justice system we all serve. We look forward to seeing the impact of the actions you've taken today and to hearing about your meetings and site visits during ABA Day at Home. On behalf of the American Bar Association and the ABA Day Planning Committee, thank you for joining us for ABA Day 2026 Online.